Hey, what's up, guys? I'm your host, Quentin, and you're listening to the Addict to Entrepreneurs podcast. And in this podcast, I'm going to be sharing about my story, my business, my struggles, so stay tuned. So first off, to start things out, I'm going to give a little bit about my background. I've been through three different families. I had my biological family, where my mother that was in that family, she was a dope addict. She was addicted to methamphetamines and whatever else other substance she did. I didn't really know her all that much. But I know that from the time I was born to the time I was 2, I lived with her. And they say you don't really remember much before 3, but I remember a lot because she had kept bringing in boyfriends, and each one of them, I'm going to guess now, was probably a dope dealer of some sort. And she would leave me with them for days on end, and they would make me do things for other people that were coming into the house we were living at, make me do sexual things to them, and do things that a child should never have to do. And so I think that from what was going on there was she was using me to get dope. Whether or not that's what the case was or not, I'm not exactly sure, but I know that's what was happening. So, yeah. And then from there, I moved on to a family with Miss Bridge. She also ended up with my 2 biological brothers. One of them she still has, the other one she gave to another one of her sisters. And then, so I was with her from the time I was 2 to the time I was 5. I don't remember much from those times. I remember always having to be in a corner, always getting hit with belts. I didn't really get to eat with the rest of the family. I had to kind of sit back and wait for them to get done. Then I could go eat scraps and stuff. She had 2 other kids that were with her that were a little bit older, and they would do the same thing that my mother's boyfriends would do. They would make me do these nasty things to them. And the day that I turned 5 years old, I knew everything was weird because she let me get up and enjoy my own birthday party. And that night I was given to a loving family, and who I consider as my mom today. So if you ever hear me say my mom in any of my podcasts, just know this is the lady I'm talking about. And she took care of me, and she said that for the longest time when I was with them, that I would go sit on the couch and I would just sit there for hours on end, and that she could tell that I had been through rough times because I was scared of everything. I didn't want to move. I was scared to do things on my own, and a lot of things I didn't know how to do. So, in that being the case, it took me a long time to figure things out. And so after I did finally figure it out, I ended up like I don't know. I was a messed up child, and I just I would steal things, lie about things, break things. I was very destructive to myself and to others around me, and I just I don't know, man. I didn't know how to be a normal human being. I didn't know how to be a normal child or anything. So I spent a lot of my days, like when I was younger, before high school and stuff, just tearing things apart. I was always grounded because I would always do something, lie about something. So I'd get grounded to my room with no electronical devices whatsoever. And back then I seen that as torture, but now I see that as probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I could still use YouTube as long as I was watching educational things. So I was learning about electronics, how to take them apart, put them together, how to rebuild things. I was learning about woodworking, metalworking, and overall just studying like just how the world is. And so with that being said, that brings me to my dad. My dad was always great. He had his ups, he had his downs. When I was in high school, he ended up cheating on my mom, and it left us all kind of stunned and everything. So that was really hard towards the later end of high school. But let's jump back to just going into high school. So going into high school, I didn't have many friends. The friends that I did have were bad influences. They were the ones that were the outcasts, and I fit into the outcasts. I didn't fit in with the other kids. I'm gonna guess because I was an addict mentality before I even became a real addict, addicted to substances. Um, they got me into drinking, smoking pot, and then all through high school. So my seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th grade, I failed all of those. I failed all of those classes. I, 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 I don't know why they ever let me actually move on to the next one because it was D minuses and Fs all the way through. My senior year, they told me you failed so many of your classes, you're not going to graduate this year. And I told them go ahead and give them to me, and they did. They actually let me do it. But I think because they wanted me to fail. Well, I didn't fail. I printed out my transcripts a couple weeks ago, and I passed all of my classes with a B and above my whole senior year. And granted that I had to take a whole high school's worth of some of the courses to even catch up to my class, and I actually ended up finishing all of my classes like a week earlier than everyone else in my class. So I ended up doing that, and then as soon as graduation night happened, I left. I left from home, left from everything. The high school thought it was a great idea to give everybody a sash with like $200 on it, and so I took my $200. I went and I bought drugs with it. I bought a bunch of pot, and then ended up getting into some trouble. So I ran to Texas, and when I ran to Texas, I went and lived with my biological father for a couple months, and I worked in the oil field, still drinking, still smoking pot. But I thought life was great. Well, things kind of went shaky there, so I did the best thing that I know how to do. I ran. I ran from the situations going on there, and I went and stayed with my biological mom. And in that time, that's when my full-fledged addiction kicked in. I got fired from my jobs. I was smoking dope constantly. Couldn't go into a store without smoking some dope. Go in the bathroom and hide. I ended up getting arrested for charges here in my town that I ran from, and I got extradited from Texas back to Utah. And in that process, I got to watch myself leave the ground because they flew me back on a plane, leave the ground to where I thought I was making my dreams come true, and being brought back somewhere where I knew what was going to happen. Um, as soon as I got back, my mom bailed me out. I lived at her house for probably a couple weeks, and then I left and I went right back to what I was doing here. I'm back to smoking pot, selling pot, everything, and then I got into a relationship, and this is about the next four years of my story was in this relationship. And I mean, I lied, stole, did whatever I could to get whatever I wanted, and I picked up a lot of skills within this time. I learned negotiation skills. I learned I learned how to talk to people. I learned how to wear these personas that normal people, I guess, don't know how to do. Like, you have a mechanic that's not an addict, that's only ever been in one situation in their life. They walk into an art gallery and they're still a mechanic, right? There's still the mechanic in this environment that doesn't require a mechanic. Well, I learned how to put on the persona. I'd be in a place for 10 minutes. I could hear 10 conversations going around me. Within those 10 conversations, I could figure out exactly how to talk to people, exactly what to say, what not to say, and I would fit in no matter where I went. But I used this skill for a lot of negative within my addiction. I would sit back, and when the dealers were there, I would talk to them. I would get fronted stuff. I'd dip. I'd leave, not ever pay it back. I'd have hits put out on me. It was crazy. And then also within that, I put my girlfriend through living hell. Like, I don't understand if somebody were to do to me the same stuff that I did to her, then I wouldn't even bother with that relationship. But she stuck with me. She stuck by my side. I got arrested and stayed in jail for about 2 months. I signed into a drug court program, and the drug court program taught me things that I didn't know. Like I knew how to put all these masks on, but I didn't know anything about like real life. I didn't know anything about really money, saving money, holding money, using money, what to spend it on. I didn't know like daily systems. Like before it was get up, get high, run, find more drugs, get high, maybe go to sleep. If not, go find more drugs, and it would just the cycle would just repeat. But this program showed me how to uh, it showed me how to better myself and use my time. And so I pick and choose the different things I want to do. Sometimes it's spend time with family for a day. Sometimes it's work on stuff for my business. Sometimes it's work on stuff for this podcast. I've been trying to get this podcast going for about a month now, and we're finally here. So, I mean, it just goes to show no matter what background you're from, you can accomplish anything you want to accomplish. With that being said, we'll move on. And within the drug court program, I also got introduced to Narcotics Anonymous, and I love that program. Working the steps has helped me tremendously. I'm not all the way through them yet. I've actually been idle on one step for probably like 6 months now, but I got so much stuff going on that it's ridiculous. But I'm about to jump back into that and get that going again. Um, NA has helped me with having somebody to talk to when I need it, somebody to ask advice for, or somebody that I can talk to that'll point me in a direction to ask advice. Um, their huge thing is living just one day at a time. Like if I'm looking to a year from now, then I'm gonna end up relapsing because I'm not thinking about today. So I got to keep my mind focused on today and do what I need to do today to stay clean, so that way I can run my business and spend the time with my family that I want to. Moving on from that, so I'm gonna go into basically what my business is about. So the name of my business is Warner's Landscaping and Lawn Service. I basically what I do is I take on contracts to mow like apartment complexes to keep them looking nice, or residential areas. It doesn't really matter. And then the landscaping part of it is like installing decorative rocks, shrubs, sod, basically cleaning up somebody's property and making their dream come true by them making my dream come true, is to giving me work and letting me own my own business and learn the ways of business. So a lot of the skills that I picked up were negotiation skills. I can talk to people. I try to do minimums on all of my things, but I live in such a small area where it's literally about a 5-minute drive to anywhere in the area. Anywhere outside of the area, I can throw a travel tax on there. But throughout my addiction, I always wanted my own business. I always wanted my own thing. And I never got that in addiction. The only thing I got in addiction was pain and suffering, and then more pain and then more suffering. But in my life of recovery now, I get to dig deep inside of myself and find what makes me tick, what emotion, what things bring up what emotions to me, and how can I use that to better myself. And I look at life a lot different today. Before I looked at it as, oh, poor me. I was in a victim mentality, and that mentality kept me sick for a lot of years. And I know that right at the end of my use, I was ready to die, man. I just pushed my girlfriend that I love so much. I pushed her out of the house, told her, don't ever come and talk to me again. I don't want nothing to do with you. That same night I got arrested. I was laying in a jail cell, and I don't know. I kind of gave up that night because I was either ready to die or I was ready to go down swinging. And when the cops showed up, I opened the door. I showed them right where everything was. I told them, please take me because it's time for me to go. Either you guys are going to take me or I'm going to take myself. And within my business, I've really realized that I have to surrender sometimes to how the world is. And a huge thing that always stands out to me is, as addicts, we either use all the time or we don't use at all. Within my business, I'm either running my business all the time or I'm not at all. And there's no mixing both together. It always changes with every situation. And I see today that I don't want to go back to that way, and I don't think that it's worth going back to that. I don't think it's even worth ever being in that situation. But I think a lot of time that a lot of people they don't realize where they're at when they're there, but they could reach out for help and everything, and gets to get some real help. And I'm hoping that this podcast can kind of open people's eyes and stuff to that. And I hope that everyone just stay tuned. I'm hoping to have some guests on here later in the next couple of weeks, and maybe we can get into more detail with them. And I hope you guys enjoy. Hit the subscribe and like button.